Hello, everybody. It's Peter McLaughlin, BlueSky Hypnosis. Welcome to Friday Live at 5. It's really hard to believe that another week has already passed. I feel like I was just kind of signing off with you guys last Friday, and it's hard to believe 7 days went by that quickly. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or if there's something going on here, but time seems to be compressing a little bit. Today we're going to be talking about full heart weight loss hypnosis. Weight loss is a really important topic, it seems, on the channel. The videos with the most views are pertaining to weight loss. It definitely gets a lot of interest, and there's so much around this in terms of how to approach this problem that is so resistant for so many people. So today we're going to be talking about that. Before I get into that, I just want to go through basic standard disclaimers. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a psychologist. I am a hypnotist and I'm a life coach. So everything I say comes from my personal perspective. It's based primarily on working with clients over the last 15, 16 years, something like that at this point. And seeing what works, what doesn't work, where we can make breakthroughs and so forth, and then kind of consolidating all of this knowledge. And then also what works for people in terms of the videos that I've created for the channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. If you have questions, please feel free to ask the questions in the chat box. It's what makes this live alive instead of me just talking away at the camera. If you have comments that you want to make those comments. And also, if you have suggestions about future lives or content you'd like to see on the channel, please feel free to share that with me. I really appreciate that. In fact, I just published this Wednesday a track on stopping procrastination, using hypnosis to stop procrastination, to get to work, to clean your house, to move forward in your life, to move forward in your career, to exercise your body. And this came directly from a number of people who attend these lives and people who watch the videos. So greatly appreciated with that, and keep it all coming. Without further ado, I think I'm going to jump right in and start talking about full heart weight loss hypnosis. Why did I call it this? Well, in my experience, a lot of people are eating because they want to feel better about themselves. For the same reason that people might take drugs, or they might drink alcohol, or they might engage in other kinds of behavior or activities. You know, could be gambling, could be cigarette smoking. And what I have found is that sometimes they're trying to fill a feeling of a void, an emptiness on the inside. Other times it could be this, or it could be in addition to, that they're trying to distract themselves from some kind of pain in their life that's going on. And I also believe, and I wrote it in the notes about doing this live, that in my experience, a person with a heavy heart often has a heavy body. And so a heavy heart is a heart that is sad. It's full of grief, perhaps. It's full of other types of disappointment or anxiety or pain. And so I think when our heart is full, of love, then our body and our behavior and our thoughts and our actions all kind of flow from that full heart. So one of the things, and I'm just kind of skipping ahead here in the things that I wrote down in the little outline of today's live, is that I believe our culture has things exactly wrong. In other words, when people say that they want to lose weight, and I work with a lot of people who want to lose weight, I will ask them, why do you want to lose weight? Sounds like a ridiculous question. Doesn't everybody, who's overweight want to lose weight? Isn't it obvious why we want to lose weight? Well, no, it isn't. And different people have different reasons for wanting to lose weight. But a lot of the times I hear people saying, because I will feel better in my body. I will look better in my clothes. I'll feel better about myself. And I think that's kind of the key, right? If a person looks better in their clothes, they're going to feel better about themselves. If they look in the mirror and they like what they see, they have this perception that they're gonna feel better about themselves. And maybe they will for a short period of time. But I feel like that's backwards. It's almost like saying, look, you're not allowed to have to have these good feelings until you do all of these other things, this external work. You know, if the outside of your house isn't painted and isn't maintained and isn't beautiful, then you don't have any right to feel good about yourself. You have to go fix that before you can feel good about yourself. Well, the people who live in the house could be depressed. They could be, you know, dealing with drug addiction. They could be, you know, husband and wife fighting with each other. Kids could not be talking to them, but the outside of the house could look good. My point is here that the body follows the mind. The body follows the emotions. And science has actually proven this on multiple occasions. And yet we get the message that if we want our emotions to be in a great place, if we want our mind to be in a good place, if we want our heart to be full, we have to have a hot, trim, muscular, thin, sexy body. And I think it's the other way around. And the argument I will make for this is that when people are unhappy, they do things like emotional eating. They eat foods that we call comfort food. Well, if you're not unhappy, you don't have to emotionally eat. If you're not unhappy, or if you're not upset, you don't necessarily need comfort food. There's a correlation between how we feel and how we behave. This should be kind of self-evident to all of us by this point, that our emotions, how we're feeling about ourselves, affects the thoughts we have, the decisions we make, the actions we take, the actions we don't take. You know, if you're feeling depressed, angry, anxious, if you're feeling bad about yourself, if you feel like you're a loser, an imposter, that you're no good, and now you go in for a job interview, the job interview probably isn't going to go really, really well. If you feel those negative feelings about yourself and you go on a first date, the date is probably not going to go really, really well. So I say it's vital to get control of the emotions first, because that's the part of you that drives everything. You know, one of the other analogies I've made recently is that, you know, when somebody calls me up and they say, you know, I'm X amount of pounds overweight and I have to lose this weight, and I really want to focus on that first before I do anything else, I kind of say back to them, you know, it's kind of like saying to me that this carpet in your living room is soaked with water, and because of that, it's all moldy and mildew and it stinks, and you really want to clean the carpet. And I walk into your house and I look up and I see that there's a hole in your roof, and every time it rains, the water comes in through the hole and it's making the carpet wet. Well, yeah, could we deal with the carpet and try to clean it out, dry it out, clean it out, so spray things on it so it doesn't smell? Yeah, but isn't it more important to fix the hole in the roof first? And obviously in this analogy, I'm saying the hole in the roof is the emptiness in your heart. It's that feeling that you're not good enough. That's what has to get fixed first. And once we fix the hole in the roof, yeah, we can deal with the carpet. And once we deal with it, we'll be done. We won't have to keep coming back to it every single week or every single month or every time it rains. So hopefully that sort of makes some sense. Sometimes I know I can get carried away with my analogies and my metaphors. I'm going to see what we have in terms of the comments, because I love when we get interactive. All right, let's see what we have here. Here is Anamete Hein. She says, greetings from Germany. At sleeping time, I am very grateful for the wonderful work you do. God bless you. Well, God bless you too. And thank you for being here, especially because it's kind of late in Germany. Marie Hogan, shout out to you, as well as Gertrude Hill. Estelle, hello Estelle. 30-Day Jeff. Here is Debbie. Debbie says, hi, I developed my overeating as a child. I'm 53 and I'm working on my inner child right now. And I have worked out that I eat emotionally, which stems from my childhood. You're getting it. You're understanding. And I guess another way of saying this, you know, what you're kind of indicating here is you're talking about the root of the problem. You know, back to that hole in the roof and then the carpet that's soaked and is all moldy and mildew and it stinks. We want the root of the problem. That's what we want to fix first, because we want this to be a permanent solution. We don't want to just clean your carpet and then, a week or a month or 3 months later have the same problem all over again. Now, what I would say is that yes, the emotional eating you're talking about could stem from your childhood. That might be where it began. In my practice, which you may or may not be aware of, but many others here probably are, is that I think of you not as a physical body. I think of you as pure consciousness, a soul, a spirit, temporarily inhabiting a human body. And so the root of this problem could, as I said, easily be earlier in your present lifetime, or it could be in a past lifetime. Whatever the case is, we want to make sure that we get to the root of the problem and we solve that. And that doesn't mean, let's just say for the sake of argument, that yours, actually the root is in a past lifetime, and that your childhood was a repetition of a pattern that was set up in that past lifetime. That's not to say that we wouldn't want to also deal with your present life, which we may, but we definitely want to get all the obstacles out of your way so that you don't feel like you have to be sort of powerless or semi-powerless against emotional eating. But great point. I love that whole concept, obviously, of dealing with the root of the problem. So thank you for writing. Let's see. Okay, so here is Bintang221. When I'm happy, I eat and drink a lot and lose weight. Okay. It may be that you also exercise a lot. Maybe you dance. Don't really know. But that's interesting. When you are happy, you eat and drink a lot and you also lose weight. Okay. I would say most people probably don't have that experience, but it's interesting to figure out what's going on with you. Are you saying that you eat and drink more when you're happy and you lose weight, but when you're not happy, you eat and drink less and you gain weight? That would be fascinating. So thanks for making the comment. Legal Eagle, welcome back, Legal Eagle. It's good to see you here. When someone sees an overweight person, they most likely see pain. But what about a thin person? I get frustrated that heavy people get judged. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. There is such a thing as being underweight. And I can tell you for sure that there are people who have written to me asking about that. Do I have a track to help them gain weight? Which unfortunately I don't have that as of yet. I've only heard that request a couple of times. But I think you're right that there's an external bias where we see somebody who's heavy, and I think there's a kind of judgment, and there's not necessarily, although sometimes I suppose there is, depending on how thin someone is, there's not necessarily a judgment of when they're thin. I mean, even sometimes people have said to me that they've had a really hard time going on in their life, like they were arguing with their spouse or getting a divorce, or they got sick or something and they lost some weight, and people were commenting, "Hey, you look really great. Looks like you lost weight, blah, 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 blah." So yeah, I mean, you raise a really valid point that in our culture, people who are overweight, I think there's oftentimes an immediate reaction. In either case, whether somebody is underweight, significantly underweight, or they're significantly overweight, there probably really is pain in both cases underlying that. And that kind of gets to that whole full heart concept that we want to, at least when I think about this, I want to help people heal their heart, basically. Because once their heart is healed, it's easier for them to not be overeating or not be eating the wrong things, to be able to be more motivated and take action, including exercising their body and so on. So it's great to see you back here, and thanks for making the comment. Estelle, thank you so much, Estelle. She says, my analogies are always on point. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Sometimes I'm wondering if I'm wandering. Here is Bintang. In the last year, even though I exercise and eat as usual, I have put on weight. But more than weight, I've developed cellulitis all over. So one of the most interesting pieces of research I came across a number of years ago at this point is research that was done at Yale University. And they were looking at people who were eating and drinking the same amount, the same kind of diet that they had been eating and drinking, say, 5 years earlier. Same amount of exercise. In other words, nothing had really changed in terms of the external inputs of calories and outputs of exercise calories. But they had been gaining weight primarily in the case of the study around the abdomen. And what they realized, what they determined was that the difference was that these people were now under a lot more stress. So the two things that have always kind of driven my thinking around weight loss and hypnosis is the effects of stress. So when a person's stressed, they're dumping adrenaline and cortisol into their bloodstream. And the role of cortisol, the evolutionary role of cortisol, is to tell the body to hold on to all available fat and go seek more. And then the second part of stress would be what I mentioned before about people, when they're stressed, they tend to emotionally eat, and they tend to eat comfort food. So these two factors together help me understand that stress was really what I think of as the third leg of the weight loss stool. So if you think about conventional approaches, it's largely, we're going to focus on your diet. In other words, we're going to restrict or reduce the calories that are coming in, and we're going to increase the calories that are going out through exercise. And if we change the matrix, we change the dynamic so that you're burning more calories than you take in, you're going to lose weight. Well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But what it leaves out is that third leg of the stool, which I'm going to call stress. And that is, the person's going along just fine on this diet. They're doing their exercise. Everything's going great. And then something happens in their life. Something stressful happens in their life. And they just binge eat. They just blow it all in one moment. And they could have had 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever it is about doing everything just right. And then bam, everything blows up. And it's because, in my opinion, that third leg of the stool never was addressed. And of course, a two-legged stool is bound to fall over. So yeah, this could be what you're talking about related to that Yale study. You may want to look into that and the role of cortisol in weight gain. Thank you for writing in. So Lee Wiggins says it makes perfect sense. Thank you, Lee. Oh, great. Here's Roxana Gricia. How do you fix this emotional eating? Thanks. Perfect question. So I talked before about getting to the root of the problem. I used that analogy of if there's a hole in your roof and every time it rains, water's coming in, going on your carpet, and you think the carpet's the problem. Carpet's part of the problem, but the carpet really is a symptom of the problem. It's not the root problem. So in the case of emotional eating, we would want to know, what is the root problem? What is driving the emotional eating? Is it a feeling of low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-value? Is it old feelings of grief? Is it feelings of abandonment? Is it feelings of guilt and shame? Is it a past lifetime where you starved to death and your subconscious mind isn't going to allow that to happen again? Are you trying to distract yourself from some type of pain that's going on in your life? Could be a relationship. It could be you go to work and you're just bored out of your mind. You can't stand it. Boredom is a form of pain. And as I've mentioned before, I never had this experience before. I had this one particular job in a small corporate setting. And I was sitting in a cubicle. And I was just saying to some friends this morning that I remember reading in Dilbert, that cartoon strip a number of years ago, that a perfect employee for a corporation is somebody, I think they said, with like low self-esteem, and that the cubicle sort of reinforces that. And there I was in this cubicle doing this work I didn't want to do, bored out of my mind. And I found myself at a certain point during the day just like, oh, I gotta get out of here. And so I got up, walked across the street to a gas station and bought a Snickers bar. And I'm eating the Snickers bar. I go, what am I doing? I don't need this candy bar. But for me, it was giving me relief from that boredom. So there are all of these different factors that could be driving the emotional eating. Could be a couple of them combined. And back to your question, how do we deal with this? Well, for the individual, we get to whatever the root is of what's driving the emotional eating. And oftentimes, it's these really deep-rooted wounds from the past. And as I said, it could be earlier in your present life or it could be in a past life. When we find the wounds that are deeply embedded, we resolve those. How do we resolve those? Well, it depends on what the wound is. So let's say, you were, because this can happen, that a child was in the crib and they were calling for their parents, and their parents got the parenting advice that you shouldn't respond to a child when they're crying. And that particular child in that particular moment took on this feeling of, no one in the world cares about me. There's something wrong with me because my parents aren't coming. Well, we would want to go back using hypnotic regression to that moment in this hypothetical example. And we would want to help that little child heal. We would want to help them understand that they are loved, that they are cherished by the client. So the client could be 53 years old, but they're going back to a child that's 9 months old. And we'd have that person hold that 9-month-old in their arms and help them understand that they really are loved, and help them release their pain, those feelings of abandonment. There are a number of other things that we might do depending upon the individual in that particular regression. But the idea is to almost rewrite the timeline in the person's mind so that when they're not even thinking about those things, the thoughts have changed in the background, if you will. Like if a movie was running and we changed part of the film. And so if the movie's running in the background, believe it or not, it's still affecting your emotions. It's still affecting your deeper feelings and your deeper thoughts. And now if we change part of that, then in the background, we've also made a change. And what clients say to me is that when they're successful, is they get to these places where they're like, I went to the freezer at the same time, of night when we were watching TV to get the ice cream, and I pulled the ice cream out, I looked at it, and I thought, I don't really need this, and I put it back in. I said, I've never done that before. So I know that this can be incredibly effective. It's also, in many cases, tailored to the individual. The second thing that we do is once we know what the issue is, we also want to flood your subconscious mind with the opposite thoughts. So if the issue is, you were felt abandoned in the crib, took on the belief that nobody would ever love you, we want to flood your mind with you were worthy of love. Kind of like that idea of filling your heart up. So if we do those two things, we should be pretty successful with this. So thank you for asking the question. And if anyone has any further questions on that, please ask them, because I realize it's a pretty complex subject and I may not have touched all the bases. So please feel free. Stephanie, much love from France. Good to have you here. Thank you. Okay. Carmen, truth, but fixing my roof costs money. Costs money I don't have. Till I can find a solution for my roof, I have to keep cleaning the carpet. Okay. Well, I'm going to come back on that same analogy and say, cleaning the carpet once is cheaper than fixing your roof. But cleaning your carpet 150 times is more expensive than fixing the roof. So tell me what you think of that. All right. So Stephanie is saying, can we talk about the emotion code by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who offers another maybe tool to get rid of those stuck emotions? So we could talk about that, but I don't know anything about the emotion code because I haven't read it. Maybe I should. And And yes, there are probably a number of tools. I use a number of tools to help with a variety of situations. So for example, if there's an identifiable trauma from earlier in your life, we might want to do a neuro-linguistic programming technique called a trauma reversal. We can also do a technique called havening. And the idea with those techniques, with those tools, is to separate the emotion from the event. Even when we do that, I still like going back to the root of it and essentially rewriting it, because you are having millions and millions and millions of thoughts per day, and you're only aware of about 4 or 5% of those thoughts. The rest of them are just rolling around in the background, and they're affecting you on a variety of levels, and you're not even aware of them. So that's why we want to be able to change some of those key moments in the past, so that when they're rolling again through your mind, they're not affecting you in negative ways, they're now affecting you in really positive ways. Okay, here is Julie. Hello, Julie. Hello from Canada. Working in a few problems right now. Started with smoking hypnosis while I sleep for the last 6 nights. Once I have a handle on this, I will tackle weight loss. Okay, all right. I mean, the chances are good if you're dealing with excess weight and you're dealing with smoking, that yeah, something pretty powerful is driving both of those, and that the smoking is a coping mechanism for deeper feelings of pain, some kind of pain, and that the eating is also dealing with some kind of old pain. Now, the other thing that these habits could be involved with is it could be a linkage with a deceased relative, for example, or a really close friend. And every time you smoke or every time you're eating, there can be a subconscious feeling of connection with this, loving grandmother that always had you in the kitchen with her. I'm just making this up, obviously. And the association is made between those feelings of just this kind of perfect love and the smell of food and eating food, or even in some cases smoking, a grandparent that smoked or whatever. And these connections, these linkages, can easily avoid conscious awareness. And when we find that is the case, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to rewire the connection between the client and this, I'm just going to call it the grandmother, right? We're going to rewire that connection. It used to be based on food. Now we're going to create a new one that's based upon a love of cats, or a sense of humor, or gardening, or something else. And once we've rewired that connection into something that's more positive, we then, in the presence, remember again that this is like hypnotic regression, in the person's mind, we then ask the grandmother for her permission to disconnect the old connection, the old wire that was connecting them, that was based upon food. So you can probably tell, we want to come at this from a variety of different angles so that we can make sure we have removed all of the obstacles for this person so that the road is clear for them. And when the road is clear, then the sort of traditional hypnotic programming can be even more successful without those obstacles in the way. So thank you, Julie. Stephanie, she says to Roxana, "You don't need fixing, love. You are not broken. Words are magic. Be mindful of how you use them." Yeah, truer words were never spoken. There's a book that I often quote on these lives, and it's The 4 Agreements. The subtitle is Ancient Toltec Wisdom. And one of the 4 agreements is to be impeccable with your words. And the idea is that words, like Stephanie was saying, words are magic. I was taught thoughts are things. And a word creates a thought. There are different exercises you can do to prove this too. I mean, when I used to teach classes in person, and maybe we'll do it on here one day, we do this exercise where I just ask people a series of questions with their eyes closed about something they want to accomplish in their life. And then they keep their eyes closed, and I ask them a second series of questions. So column A questions and then column B questions. And just based upon the words that I use about asking these questions, it produces feelings in people that they can identify. In other words, they will say, when we've finished the question asking part, how did you feel when I asked you questions from column A? People will say they felt depressed, they felt anxious, they felt hopeless, they felt like they were never going to be able to accomplish this thing. They felt physically smaller. They felt like a panic sometimes. Their heart might have started to beat more rapidly. And when I asked questions about the same thing they want to accomplish in their life from the column B, ask the questions in a different way using different words, they say they feel empowered. They feel physically stronger and more capable. They feel lighter on the inside, and it's all based on words. So, one of the things to follow up on what Stephanie said in terms of words are magic is that even in our own language, when we talk about children being in school, children learn how to spell, S-P-E-L-L. They learn about spelling. Well, we know what that means, spelling, right? But we also know what it means in terms of casting a spell, the magic aspect of spell. It's even true that that when I was that age going to school, we learned to write in cursive. I don't think that's done anymore, but the word curse is in the word cursive. And that what I used to say to people is that with your words, you are basically painting images on the canvas of other people's minds. And depending on the words you use, the image that you're painting in their mind, you can vastly affect how they feel about themselves, how they feel about an endeavor that they're about to take on. So this is a topic that we could probably do a whole Friday Lava on, and maybe we should. And it is really important. The 4 agreements: be impeccable with your word. Another way of saying that is try to only say things out of your mouth and think things in your mind that you want to be true, rather than what you've been programmed to do, which is to focus on what you don't want. And people say, why am I so this? Why am I so that? How come this never happens? In a way, that's programming what they don't want more and more into their mind, rather than just rephrasing it and saying it in the sort of opposite way. And thus giving their mind something else to focus upon. One of the other things I talk about is it's like you're walking around in life holding the hand of a 4-year-old. And that 4-year-old takes in everything literally. Whatever you say to that 4-year-old as an adult, they're going to believe 100%. Well, that is your subconscious mind. And that's why Stephanie is so correct when she says words are magic. They are the software of your mind. They ultimately produce whatever's going on in there is going to produce how you feel, and how you feel is going to govern your actions, and your actions or inactions is going to govern your outcome. So yeah, start with the words. Start being really careful with the words that you use, with the thoughts that you think. Be careful with the media that you take in. What's in the lyrics of that song in the store I just walked into? When I'm driving and not even thinking about it. All of that is pouring in and being absorbed by the 4-year-old. What television shows or movies am I watching? Because now we get beyond words into images, and how powerful the image can be. It's said by science and by psychology that just walking in the forest, just walking in nature, and I think I have this right, although I don't have the study right at my fingertips. Somebody may want to look it up. That just walking in nature has this incredible effect on a person's mood that supposedly rivals or is superior to even some kinds of drugs or medication. So we are heavily influenced by our environment, and being able to first control what comes out of your mouth is a great way to begin to turn this ship around. So thank you for that, Stephanie. Really great observation. Here's Gia Girl. being healthy is great, but when will there ever be a time when most of us come to the realization that a lot of us are just not meant to be thin? Yeah, yeah. And back to what different researchers have noticed, that there are certain cultures in the world whereby eating disorders were unknown before American television came to that place. Places in the South Pacific that didn't have, I think like Guam or something, that didn't have American television. The women there they seemed like they were fine. And no one had ever heard of any eating disorder. And American television comes in, and within a number of years, now eating disorder is rampant. Well, that influence of what's coming into the minds of those people through their eyes and through their ears is now influencing how they think about themselves. And they start thinking, well, I'm presented with this perfect image being this, and I'm that, so something must be wrong with me. And I have to, flog myself so I can look like this. Well, that may not be in your point, that may not be my genetic constitution. That may not be the healthiest shape and size for who I am. Because I agree with you, and it's one of the things that I put on my weight loss tracks. Phrases like, you reached the perfect healthy shape and size for you, as an individual expression of you. And moreover, what might be a perfect healthy shape and size for you when you're 21 years old is probably different when you're 51 years old. And it's probably different again when you're 81 years old. I once was working on weight loss with a client, and we were working with this client's spirit guide. And the guide actually took this woman into a past lifetime where she was a Native American and showed her this life from like 4 snapshots of the life. So one snapshot, she was maybe 17 years old, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so beautiful. Like, I've got this jet raven black hair, and my skin is darker and smooth, and my body is this, right? And then they showed her again when she was a mother, like a young mother. Maybe she was in her mid-20s, and she was nursing and everything, and her body had changed in order to be a mother. And then showed her again when she was middle-aged, and her body had changed again, and now her hair was gray. And showed her again when she was elderly. And the point was that there's like a perfect you in each one of these phases of your life. And yet I think in our culture, there's a push, if you will, like a subconscious push, so that everyone looks the same, like a 17-year-old model who's been picked out of hundreds of millions of people and had makeup put on him or her and has been lit in a certain way and then airbrushed. And now everyone thinks subconsciously they're supposed to look like that. Well, you're right. That's a self-defeating mechanism. And it kind of gets back in my mind to this notion of what I called today full heart weight loss hypnosis. That in my conception, my way of approaching this with clients is you have to love yourself first. And you're allowed to love yourself without losing 1 pound. You're allowed to love yourself. And you can do this. You can feel this. And when you do, the irony is that your need to emotional eat goes down. The amount of cortisol you're going to be dumping into your bloodstream, causing your body to want to hold on to extra, all available fat, diminishes. You sleep better. You're probably going to feel more exuberant, more like you do want to be out in the sunshine, which has its own health benefits. You probably feel like you do want to be outside, socializing and taking a walk with a friend, or hiking or riding your bike, thus burning more calories. Like it in my opinion, it reverses a negative cycle and it induces a positive cycle, which has benefits across the board for you. It fixes the roof in your house, and it also fixes the carpet at the same time. and probably other things in the house that in our respective houses that need to be fixed. And I also I don't think that this is a one and done thing. I think we nurture this kind of self-love throughout our lifetimes. In other words, it isn't like, oh, I just do this 6-week program and then I never have to do anything again and I just love myself perfectly for the rest of my life. No, you work on healing the old wounds, the old pain, the old obstacle. You flood your mind with the thoughts that you want in there, and then you maintain it. You keep those thoughts coming in. You know, the example I've used before is if it's a garden, you don't stop watering the garden at some point. You don't stop weeding the garden. Those are tasks that keep on as long as you have a garden. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to have some type of a practice that keeps this going. So great points. Thanks, Gia. Vince Forever says, oh, I need something powerful. I'm brokenhearted, but don't want to be. I miss being happy and healthy. I don't know what my mental blockage is that I don't allow myself to be. So, and I said Vince Forever, it's Vice Forever. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you make a good point, which is, you know that your heart feels broken, but it sounds like you don't know why or when that happened. So if we were working together, you know, I mean, we would talk a lot more, but I would be searching for and helping you figure out when was this paradigm created for the first time? You know, were you born as a healthy, happy, giggly, smiley baby, and then at some point something happened, boom, and that's where the heart got broken? If that's so, then that's the point at which we would want to identify, and then we would want to heal that broken heart so that you don't have that obstacle. It's like walking down, you know, I'm imagining a path on the side of a mountain. And you know, you turn the corner and there's a giant boulder on the path. And it's like, well, you can't go left around the boulder, you can't go right, you can't go underneath it, you can't go over it. It's in your way. You know, find that boulder and then move it out of the way so your path is clear and you can keep walking. One of the things that you could consider doing for yourself is on this channel, I have a video that teaches people how to use a pendulum. A pendulum is an ideomotor tool to help you understand what's going on in your subconscious mind. You could use the pendulum, the video teaches you how to do it, to isolate, potentially, what is that boulder that's blocking your path? You know, when was it created? Once you know that, it will be easier to focus in on resolving that particular blockage. So you could say, for example, if you were using the pendulum, is this feeling of a broken heart the result of an emotional wound? You're probably going to get a yes. Was this emotional wound incurred for the first time earlier in my present life? It's going to be a yes or a no. Was this emotional wound incurred for the first time in a past life? Once you know that it's an emotional wound and when it happened, then you could say, did this happen when I was abandoned? Did this happen as a result of me hurting someone else? Is this a result of guilt, shame? Is this a result of you know, did I take this on from someone else? These are all possibilities, but I think diagnosing, if you will, and I'm using that term the way a car mechanic might use it, you know, smoke coming out of the engine. Well, what inside, you know, underneath the hood, what inside the engine is causing that smoke? Because the smoke's just a symptom. And following it down to its root cause will help you, I would think, that's at least how I would pursue this, to figure out what is it? Because once you know what it is, once you've isolated it, now the next step is to heal it. But you have to know what it is before you can heal it. Okay, good points though. Here is Shannon. I was an obese baby. I would cry unless my parents gave me 2 whole bottles of juice in bed. I had rolls of fat on my arms. I just always ate for comfort. Okay, so Shannon, I would say the same thing. I mean, from the sounds of it, and I don't know. I mean, my impression of a baby is that babies have fat on them, you know, and that's really, really healthy. I mean, I guess what you're saying is that it was more than sort of normal, and that you needed to be eating or to be drinking juice all the time in order to be comforted or soothed. Well, the same thing would be true. Did something happen after you were born, while you were still a baby? Did something happen when you were in your mother's uterus? Was there some kind of a trauma that your mother suffered? Because you're still conscious. Did something happen in a past lifetime? Did you bring some kind of pain with you, which a lot of people do? Did you bring some kind of pain with you from another lifetime into this lifetime? And your coping mechanism has been food and drink. So same idea, get to the root cause. And just like Vice Forever, you could consider using a pendulum and start to isolate this thing and figure out when was this created, and what kind of trauma, what kind of event created it? Did you take it on from someone else? These are all possibilities. And once you know where this was created, now we can begin to talk about exactly what we would do in your case to resolve that. So thank you for making the comment. And let me know, if you're willing, what you find out if you decide to pursue that. Here's Bintang 221. Since the bloody flu, I've never had such a problem. Exactly, you got it. That's why when I'm on holiday, I'm happy. I lose and melt away fat without doing anything. I know it's all stress related. Okay, so here's the point I want to make. We live in this physical environment. We have 5 physical senses. The outside world is telling us that if we want to make a change, we have to make that change on the physical level. All of that is ignoring the fact that what's really driving us is our emotions. And what's driving the emotions? Our thoughts. And what's driving the thoughts? Not just what's going on in our life now, but the things that have happened to us in the past. And the secret of life, in a way, if you will, this is just my 2 cents, is that your thoughts create everything. This is what Stephanie was talking about with words are magic. And that we know a person could be in the most beautiful place. I'm not talking about you. A person could be in the most beautiful place imaginable and be suicidally depressed. A person could be in very modest circumstances, living in a tiny little place and not having much money, and they could feel really, really happy and content. The key is getting control of your mind so that whether you're in a beautiful place on vacation or you're in your kind of workaday world, you take time to go inside where you can be anywhere. You can create any feelings you want inside of yourself. And thus, in that way of thinking about it, you can literally be on vacation every single day. And when you do that, and when you start to change the deeper programming, the stuff that's pulling you back into that stress world, that's when your life really begins to change, when you have more control over your life. So thanks for commenting again. Hello, Waffle Queen, shout out to you. Here's Estelle. Hello, Estelle. Why do we have so many wounds to resolve in this life? We are such complicated creatures. It's crazy how you can go your whole life trying to fix the symptoms and never know the cause. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I would say, because we're not taught this. There are cultures that have, say, shamans. There are other cultures that believe in reincarnation, where I think these concepts are like, well, yeah, of course, where it's kind of a matter-of-fact thing. That it's not what do you mean we live more than one lifetime? What do you mean that, when you die, your soul or your spirit goes on and then it comes back? I feel like we're handicapped in a sense, that when we're born, I think we have this expansive knowledge of who we really are. And that through acculturation into this culture at this time in history, we're pushed into this box of scientism where everything is defined by the 5 physical senses, where children are told it's all in your head. It's just a dream. It's only your imagination, where all of that other stuff is completely denigrated and it's minimized and it's pushed away. I have so many cases of people, parents, who've said to me, "Oh, I'm so worried because my daughter was saying, this little girl was saying that she lived in another lifetime," and it scares parents because that seems outside of the norm to them. And the inclination is to take them in for, to be fixed. When really this child is just so expansive because they haven't been put into this small societal box yet. And one of the downsides of being in that box is that you start to lose even the concept of how to get to the root cause. Because if you just say, well, there's no such thing as past lifetimes, and something happened to you in a past life and you brought it into this life, you will never find the cause, because that possibility has been excluded from you because it's on the other side of the wall of the box in which you're sitting. I know I've shared this before, but I think it bears repeating that in one of my own meditations, which is more like self-hypnosis one day, I meet with my guides. I do it before I go live, on Friday. Sit here in my office and I go right to them. And one day they said to me, "When we put you in the canoe of life, we gave you a paddle. It's not our fault you didn't use the paddle." So what they meant was, and they showed me this image of sitting in the stern of a canoe, and on the bottom of the canoe, right between my feet, is a paddle, just lying there on the bottom of the canoe. And if you can imagine going down a river in a canoe, you would be totally subject, without a paddle, to the vagaries of the current and the rocks. You'd whack into a rock and you'd go twisting around in a little whirlpool, and you'd get caught underneath a streamer, like a log that's hanging over or something like that. But with a paddle, you could negotiate the difficulties of the river. You'd see the rock up ahead, and this paddle would allow you to go around it. It doesn't mean that some parts of the river wouldn't be calm and flat and easy, and some parts wouldn't have like crazy whitewater, just like our lives. But if you have this paddle, you get the idea. It's a lot easier to navigate. And in this metaphor, the paddle is this sort of inner wisdom, the access to help and support. The help and the support of your spirit guides, of deceased relatives, of ascended masters, of being able to go into past lifetimes and learn where, this trauma occurred, and now you've got a chance to fix it. Or to go to a spiritual regression where you made choices for the life that you're living in now. The people you're related to, maybe. Important relationships, maybe even diseases or other disabilities, for example. What your purpose is for this lifetime. Being able to go into a future progression. Going to observe the Akashic record. All of these things represent this paddle that doesn't mean it doesn't rain, it doesn't snow, the wind doesn't come, that the river doesn't have rough spots. It has all of those things. But if you have the paddle, you're in an entirely different circumstance and situation. And we live in a culture that, in the way I view things, is telling you nothing is real, largely, unless you can detect it with one of your 5 physical senses. And that leaves out inspiration, creativity, epiphany, insight, and all forms of creativity, which is really, if you think about it, our greatest strength as human beings. So yeah, you make a really, really, really good point. And I'm attempting to give you my answer to that, and I'm sure other people have other perspectives on that, but that's how I see it. So thank you for making that point. It's a really important observation. Here's M. Krieger. So hypnosis can address the subconscious, which is where I think the problem lives. We don't even know what the root problem is. Yes, so hypnosis can address, I mean, that's the point of hypnosis. It operates, we operate within the realm of the subconscious mind. That's the meta perspective on hypnosis, is operating inside the subconscious and making changes inside the subconscious to help that person live a different life, because that's where your blueprint is. That's where the programming is that's running your life. And then the second part of it was, we don't even know what the root problem is. So I don't know if you heard me mention this before, but that's exactly what we want to do. We want to help you, if we're working one-on-one, we want to help you isolate, locate the root of the problem, and then step number 2, resolve that root of the problem so that that metaphorical boulder that's blocking your path, that's going along the mountain where you can't go to the left, right, up, but we get that out of the way so the path opens up for you. So yeah, exactly. I definitely want to take a few more questions, and before I do, I just want to talk briefly about next week, next Friday. It's hard to believe that an hour's already gone by. Next week, we're going to be talking about resolving low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-value using hypnosis. So I hope you guys will consider returning for that one. That's next Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern, same bat station, same bat channel. I just remember watching Batman when I was a kid. All right, let's take a couple more, and then we'll bid each other adieu for the weekend. Here is Nicole P. Hi, hope everyone is doing well. Been listening on my TV, great topic, thank you. The I Am Worthy of Love video is great. I listen to it often, maybe not enough. So that's awesome, Nicole, and thanks for raising that. I think that's a really good track, and it kind of fits in with our topic today about full heart weight loss hypnosis, that oftentimes with clients, before we do anything that's related to weight loss, depending upon their particular situation, we start going after, essentially, I am worthy of love. And so with all of my clients, I will assign, if you will, different tracks for them to listen to in between sessions that we work one-on-one together on. And when it's something that deals with resolving low self-esteem, low self-love, low self-worth, low self-value, that's the track that I love people to be listening to. It's a subliminal track. You listen to it while you're sleeping. You don't consciously hear the words. You just hear the sound. I can't remember if it's rain, or I think it's rain on that one. You just hear sort of rain in the background, pitter-pattering. But underneath that rain that your subconscious mind picks up while you're sleeping are all of these messages, suggestions, and affirmations for loving yourself. And this can be a super powerful tool for turning this ship around and being able to move in a different direction. One of the most powerful ways of changing what's going on in your subconscious mind is through repetition, right? That's what advertisers use. They don't just show a commercial to you once, they show it to you multiple times, because they know it's going to take multiple exposures before it seeps into your subconscious mind and you act on it. So we want to use that same principle in our favor, and with these tracks on my YouTube channel. And if anybody hasn't subscribed, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It's BlueSky Hypnosis on YouTube. It's got, I think I have, 150, 160 videos at this point on a variety of topics. This one that Nicole's talking about is like the other ones on my YouTube channel, which you might want to check out. So thanks a lot for that, Nicole. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll down here and see if there are any people that haven't commented yet. Just going to look down. Oh, this is a really interesting question. M. Krieger, can we heal the subconscious mind and never really know the issue consciously? I would say yes. I would say yes, that is definitely possible. And one of the recurring phenomena on my channel, especially with weight loss, are people that will write in and say they don't, for example, they don't usually dream, but they had 3 nights in a row when they were listening to one of my weight loss tracks, like these really bizarre, crazy, sometimes scary dreams. And when that first came up, I'm like, well, what would cause that? Because everything on the track is loving, light, positive, life-affirming, blah, 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 blah. And I think that what's happening is that, well, one of the phrases that I often use is, you are safe to release the old heavy weight. And that phrase is purposely designed to have 2 meanings. So one meaning pertains to the physical world. You're safe to lose the old heavy weight. In other words, the excess pounds, kilos, can now shed away. But the other meaning of that is obviously the heavy weight of emotion. And this plays directly into that concept of full heart weight loss. So if part of the heart is broken, if part of the heart is heavy, they are free to release that old heaviness. Now, what is that old heaviness? I don't really know, because millions of people are listening to it, and it could be different for all of them. But it could be grief. It could be low self-esteem. It could be shame. It could be guilt. It could be fear. It could be an old trauma that they suffered, a physical trauma. It could be an emotional trauma. We don't really know. And these dreams, these intense, sometimes scary dreams, I believe, and this is just my theory, I believe is 2 possibilities. One is that the positive input, these loving suggestions, ideas, thoughts that are being repeated and flowing into their mind while they're sleeping, are colliding like 2 medieval armies on a battlefield with all clang, swords, clash, boom, screams, blah, 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 because they're fighting, right? The new ideas, the new sort of forces of light are colliding with the old ideas, with the heavy forces of darkness. And it's creating this clash, which is creating these troubling dreams. The other thing, and both of them could be working simultaneously, is that the dreams themselves is a way of the mind working through these old traumas. In other words, that the track itself has stimulated, almost like your car is dead, and you bring another car over and you put the jumper cables on it, and you hit the battery, and the car it starts up again. That it's sort of, you have that with a defibrillator on a person's chest. Like if their heart stops beating, or it's got a weird rhythm, and you put the defibrillator on it, hit them with a charge, and then it can shock the heart into a normal rhythm. That the track is shocking or stimulating that loving part of us to become awake. And that loving part of us is helping to resolve these old traumas in our sleep. Perhaps even metaphorically, rather than we're having a dream of something that actually happened. Maybe the dream is actually a metaphorical dream that's resolving an old issue. And certainly if that happens, then it may never come to our conscious attention or awareness of what we just resolved, but no less important, I would say. So yeah, really, really, really good question. Thank you so much for asking it. And I hope my answer made sense. All right, we'll take 1 or 2 more here. Here is Wolfie Wit. Been struggling with binge eating for the last 10 years. It's every 3 months, like clockwork. And I gain back everything I worked so hard to lose. Okay, that's got to be super frustrating. And I know for sure you're not alone in all of this. What I will say to you is that your subconscious mind is designed to protect you. Your subconscious mind is also literal, like a 4-year-old person, 4-year-old girl you're walking around with all the time. And I don't know your situation, obviously, because I don't know you. But I think if we proceed from that knowledge that your subconscious mind is trying to protect you, the next question would be, okay, what's it trying to protect you from? Is it basically could it be saying, for example, that if you become heavier, that you will, by dint of being heavier, you won't get into a relationship. And by not getting into a relationship, you won't repeat a pattern that's happened in the past, and in that way, it will be protecting you. Could it be that you starved to death in a past lifetime, and by keeping this extra weight on, when the famine hits, and the famine's not going to hit because you're not in that lifetime, you're in another lifetime, but the subconscious mind might not know that it's protecting you from having that same experience of dying again? Is it something about feeling unsafe in social situations, and by creating this weight, it's either removing you from the social situations or creating a barrier for you? Is the eating itself acting kind of like a drug and distracting you from some old pain that your subconscious mind wants to keep repressed? All of these are possibilities. There are several others I can think of as well. But back to that concept of root cause. You know, ideally, if you've been dealing with this for 10 years, we would want to know the root cause. And if you wanted to approach this in a you know, when you were super diligent and motivated, you could start with listening to one of my weight loss tracks, one of my subliminal weight loss tracks, free on my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. It's an 8-hour track. You just listen to it. Pick what you like: music, rain, sound of ocean, whatever you want. Listen to that for 30 days while you sleep. Notice what happens. Pair that with a shorter audible track you listen to during the day. The one that I like the best was a couple I like a lot now, but one is called a dual track weight loss. And that's where you put on headphones and you get one set of suggestions from column A in your right ear, another set of suggestions from column B in your left ear. Happens around the 9-minute mark. The whole thing takes 22 minutes. And listen to that during the day. If you do that for 30 days, see what's going on at the end of 30 days. If it's still sort of resistant, then we would want to figure out what is the root cause. Which, if you're really motivated, you could use that pendulum video on my channel to figure out what is the root cause. If it's still having trouble with that, then you probably would want to work with somebody like me. It doesn't have to be me. Could be me because I do Zoom sessions, but it could be somebody else where you know, we identify and then resolve that root cause and get that boulder out of your way. All right, we'll take one more, and good luck to you, by the way. Just scrolling down here. Here's Stephanie again from France. And she says, oh my God, yes, casting a spell is exactly what it means when we use spelling. A word. You've got all my attention. You've really went in depth with your practice, haven't you? Well done. Blessings. Well, blessings to you too, Stephanie, and thank you for being here, and hope you come back. I really appreciate what you've added to today's conversation, along with everybody else who commented. So I guess we'll leave it there, and I hope you guys will consider coming back next week for resolving low self-esteem utilizing hypnosis. And we can certainly, if you want to keep talking about issues that pertain to weight, because weight and self-esteem are often connected to each other, feel free to pick up this part of the conversation next Friday as well. So I hope you guys have an awesome weekend wherever you are, France, Germany, other countries, the United States, and look forward to seeing you here next week. Take care. Bye.